Which role is the most important in Overwatch? Most people probably say tank, or maybe even support. But are these really even necessary? Well, that's what we're going to find out. First, I'm going to lay out some categories, then we'll determine which role is most important in each category on a scale from 1 to 10, and finally we'll sum up the scores to find out which one is truly the most important. First category is how impactful errors are. Basically, how much can a role get away with and still be good? 1 means their fail had no impact at all, and 10 means the game is basically over. Let's start with tank. I feel like it depends on which tank you're playing, but most of the time, I find that you can usually mess up a bit on positioning and target priority and still manage to do very good. However, when it comes to ult usage, if you mess up, it can change a game. Same goes for utility usage. If you miss a shield, you can cause a teammate to die, which could change a fight completely. Say you're Ramatra and you run in too deep, you can usually Nemesis form out and live. Say you focus their tank a bit on accident, you can usually switch targets and be fine. But if you panic ult and die, that's one of the most game-changing ults gone for the next few team fights, which can be enough to end the game. Same goes for shield. Say you misclick and put it behind their team, now they have a whole bunch of free space to push through. So with all this, honestly, I'd give tank a solid 7 out of 10. Now into DPS, and honestly I think this one kind of speaks for itself. Most DPS have enough movement to get out of a bad situation and an ability to help them or the damage to just win. However, if your positioning is bad, it's very easy to get punished and be out of the fight. Aside from that though, I feel like you can get away with a bad ult or two and even dying in a fight as long as you did something beforehand. So I'd say around 4 out of 10. Now support. I think that as a support you have an extremely low room for error. Bad positioning, you're picked off and now the team will probably lose the fight. Not cycling, healing, and damage properly, now either your teammates die or their team doesn't. Missing vital abilities like Suzu and Lifeweaver's Pull, that person is now typing GG no heals in chat. Wasting your ult? You just got rid of possibly one of the most game-changing ults that would have been necessary in the next fight. Overall, there was just little to no room for error a lot of the time. You mess up, your team will probably fall, meaning the support is an easy 10 out of 10. Now, on to the next category. How much can your success sway a game? Examples of this are Lucio Boops, Roadhog Pulls, and Widow Snipes. 1 being not even noticeable, and 10 being everyone says nice blank in chat or the enemy starts insulting you. Starting with tank. This one's a bit tough as there are some tanks that shine brighter. However, I'm going to use Wrecking Ball for this example. Say you dive into their backline and take out both supports. You just won the team fight. And while it's probably not going to be acknowledged, at least your sadistic eyes got to see it. Along with this, a pick on a position Widow can allow your team to push when they wouldn't have been able to. I also think that tank ults can be brought in here too. A good Ram, Rhine, Orisa, or Wrecking Ball ult can win a game and probably will get play. So overall, I'd say a solid 8 out of 10 for this one. Now DPS. This one heavily depends on which DPS you're playing, as if you're playing Torb and your turret is putting pressure on their team constantly, it's probably not going to sway the game as much as a Widow picking off their supports. But honestly, ignoring the outliers, I feel like DPS can have some of the most important plays in the game. Their job is to get picks and put pressure, which means when they're doing their job, you can feel it. The enemies are scared to peek sight lines, they're checking the ground for traps, or maybe they're even throwing because they think it's their supports that's the issue. However, while most DPS ults are good at getting a few picks or maybe even very rarely team wiping, I feel like majority of the time they have very little to no impact on the game as a whole, usually either just stalling or sometimes securing a good start to a team fight. Overall though, I feel like DPS sits at a solid middle ground of a 6 out of 10. Now into supports. This one's a bit tough as supports like Moira don't get much value while Mercy Res can win a fight. So I'm gonna go based off of a whole here. Most supports have some means to absurdly change a fight. They can pretty consistently win fights against overpushing DPS. They can sometimes even solo tanks like Kiriko, and the debuffs that they do can alter a game. An Ana hits an anti-nade on their whole team. Unless they have a Kiriko, you just won that fight. Zen Discord's an overpushing tank, they're gone in seconds. Along with this, support utility can save teammates, allowing them to get more value than they would have previously. A tank is overpushing, Wife Lever pulls them back and gets insulted in chat. Their Ana nades your whole team, sues them as a Kiriko, and you just hopefully stop them from winning that fight. And don't even get me started on support ults. Nano is probably one of, if not the best ult in the game when comboed with a Ram or a Genji blade. Kitsune and Orbital Ray are so good, most people just walk away from them instead of fighting in it. Lucio Beat can save your whole team from a Sigma ult, an Alari ult, a Nano Blade, seriously just about anything. So honestly, I don't think this comes as a surprise. 10 out of 10, hell, even 11 out of 10. Really quick, if you are enjoying the content so far, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm so close to 1K and your sub would help me out a ton. Along with that, if you like the content in the background, I have a VODs channel along with a Twitch and a community Discord. If you're interested in any of those, links are in the description. Anyways, back to the video. So far, it's looking like sports will take it, but let's see how this fares on the next category. How hard is it to win a fight without this role? 1 being they weren't even noticeable, and 10 being the team exploded. Let's start with tank. This one's pretty rough. If you're going into a team fight without a tank, you're basically throwing. If a tank dies during a team fight, it usually marks the end of the team fight. Along with this, the switch to 5v5 is matches where there's only one tank, meaning your strongest unit being gone most likely means that you will lose. Basically, if your tank isn't there and theirs is, you will lose 90% of the time. So honestly, I think this one's a solid 8 out of 10. On a DPS, honestly, sometimes in a team fight, I genuinely don't even realize the DPS has died and we still win the fight. However, if you have a bad DPS a whole game, you'll notice it. So while on a fight-to-fight basis, the answer may change. I feel like without one DPS, it's a 2 out of 10. But if both are gone, which I'll rank it off of, it's definitely higher. If both your DPS die in a fight, it's usually best to back out and wait for their respawns, unless the enemy team also doesn't have DPS. So while this might seem that important individually, together, they're at least a 5 out of 10, but I'll be generous and say 6 out of 10. Now onto sports. I feel like they're right in between tank and DPS. Let me explain a little bit. Without one support, you can probably win a team fight, but you'll have to play a bit cautious. However, without both, you'll lose the fight majority of the time, if not every time. Without supports, a team has no structure, no ground to stand on. And while it's easy to overlook them, without them, you lose. This is something that ties back into my stats video. Supports have a stat called players saved, which honestly should be on the scoreboard. But seriously, this stat alone can show how good you were doing as a support. If you have a lot of players saved, that's how many deaths would have happened without you there. So without hesitation, easy 10 out of 10. So the scores are this: tank at 23, DPS at 15, and support at 31 or 30. With these scores, it's easy to say supports are the most important role in the video. But if this is true, why can't 2 good supports just win a game? If your tank is feeding the whole game when you're a support, it's very hard to win. If you pull your tank out of a certain death scenario as wife leaver, they'll probably just type "let me die" in chat. Yeah, that happened to me the other day. So seriously, if they're the most important role, why doesn't it feel like it in game? Well, simple. It's a team game. No matter what you as an individual do, you're reliant on your team having at least the resemblance of cognitive function to be able to shine through. So in the end, I feel like each role is the most important in its own way. DPS soften the enemies and allow the tank to make space, and the support assists the DPS and help keep the team up. Your team is a house. Without the walls, roof, or people inside, it'll never be a home. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, check out the links in the description, and thank you to Marbed, Araya, and AJ for the 2-3 subs over on Twitch. I hope you all have a great rest of your day/night, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.